welcome to Access. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Ken.
And this week we are doing Haggai.
Haggai. Yeah.
And we have amazingly accurate dating for
Finally.
this book.
Well, you've been waiting for it.
Haggai was active from August 29th, 520 BCE to December 18th, 520 BCE.
We finally fixed our time machine is
Yes.
what happened, and Nicole went back and figured it out.
Well, he
Took
talks
that detour
about...
for the dinosaurs. That was
I know.
nice, but...
Had to run. It was like Jurassic Park. Velociraptors.
Keep talking.
Where are you going?
Keep talking.
Okay. So, and we know this through internal datings about festivals, and that they mention Darius is the second year. You might remember Darius from previous videos and times. Persian king.
Keep going.
Yes.
Dinosaurs.
And that Darius has, it's a time when the exiles are allowed to return home.
Yes. Restoration.
Restoration.
We've gone forward in time again.
Yes. And so that kind of sets the tone for the book. It's similar to the historical situations of Ezra and Nehemiah, but they're a little later. So that's what's going on.
Perfect.
Yeah. We do know that at this time, Jerusalem was not a very economically viable city, but that's going wrong, and that's going to play into some of the themes for the book.
Great. Well, they may or they may not. Maybe you'll add to some of the themes, like I do for you.
Okay.
Thematically, I feel the book is really about work, the importance and centrality of work, particularly on the temple. This is where we're going to be, rebuilding the temple and pushing to do that even when it's hard, because apparently financially the city's like Detroit, and it's hard, and so it takes a prophet, it takes a whole group of people trying to keep the eye on the ball to be focused on rebuilding the temple, when it would be a lot easier to probably be focused in other areas trying to rebuild the economic machine. So it's to put kind of the first things first, if you will. And then, I'd say thematically as well, we get something, it's not entirely new, but there's a messianic scene at the very end of this book. There's the next book is Zechariah, and Zechariah is written at the same time as Haggai, and it's going to do this very, very differently. But there is this kind of scene at the end of Haggai where we're imagining destruction and a restoration of a Davidic kingdom. So it's these themes of the restoration that'll be like Daniel, if you remember that, and then Zechariah that goes fully apocalyptic, that brings us into the world of the New Testament, which is going to be much more at home with images like that. But Haggai is still more prophetic than it is apocalyptic. So Haggai is still writing from the perspective of power, and he's having prophetic visions, but he's still writing them in like normal language that you can understand, as opposed to Zechariah that we'll get to.
Yeah.
So thematically, do you want to add anything?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I do want to tell a story.
Yeah, do.
Okay.
Does it involve a pink dinosaur?
No, it was going to involve Zechariah's first speech.
Oh, great.
That was just a transition I wanted to do.
Okay.
Okay. That he says that you gather much, but you're still hungry. Like you eat a lot, but you're never satiated.
Haggai's first speech?
Sorry, Haggai. Did I say Zechariah?
Yeah.
It's
That's
Haggai.
my fault. I introduced him.
I'm sorry. So it's Haggai, and he says, you drink much, but you are never satiated. And that he makes this link that between the fruitlessness of their efforts and the fact that the temple is not rebuilt. And that he promises that once you rebuild the temple and kind of get your spiritual life in order, your physical life will fall into order as well. So it's this really intimate connection between the two. And there's a lot of images where the Lord is saying, I live in a shack, and you guys live in homes. There's
Yeah.
something wrong here.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's such an interesting metaphor, I think, for modern Americans, or just modern Western countries, where we try to consume so much and we never feel like we have enough, and our spiritual lives are in disarray. But just from my own experience, people who seem to be pretty grounded in their faith and kind of know who they are within their faith feel okay about how much they're taking in and seem to worry less about that stuff.
I'd say I'd frame it in a similar way
Yeah.
to say that we all want a sense of equanimity and peace, but at least from our great spiritual traditions, there's a word that we don't like. It's called discipline. And pretty much every faith tradition I know of, certainly our own, says, yes, right speech, all these sorts of things are a gift from God, but we are also given spiritual disciplines like prayer, like scripture reading, and these require, as you all know, if you've been faithfully reading through this, it's hard work.
It's not easy to. Some of them feel like you're just slogging through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the promise is, if you pray regularly, it will become easier at times to pray. This is not magic quid pro quo. This is saying that these disciplines train us up in the ways of it's the sense of we all want the fruits of the Spirit, but very few of us really want to work and put the time in to kind of fertilize those fields, if you will, to bear the fruit.
Right.
And that's, I think, what Haggai is saying in a sense of, you're not happy, you're frustrated. Focus on this centralizing, force, the temple, and perhaps the whole community might come together more.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a really good way to interpret it.
Well, it follows on.
Yeah.
The image of clean hands and unclean hands follows entirely onto this. I want to talk about cleanliness only because you can't understand the New Testament at all without understanding this distinction between clean and unclean. We didn't talk about it a whole lot.
No.
But within the law, there is this sense of things that are clean and unclean. And there's a whole set of codification and laws about how one becomes clean after being made unclean.
Yeah.
And here the example is it's kind of a story told that, hey, if somebody puts bread in their cloak and then touches things, is it going to make them clean? And they go, well, of course not. It's a question put to the priest, and they say, well, okay, how about a guy who has unclean hands because he's touched a corpse, a dead body? Is anything that he touches after that going to be made unclean? And the priest said, of course. You can't make something that's unclean just magically clean.
Yeah.
And so the answer from Haggai here is right. You've got to restore the temple, because the temple is this place where things that have been ritually unclean can be sanctified and become whole again. It reminds me of rules to a game.
Yes.
Where it makes, if you're playing soccer, and all of a sudden, the person you're playing with just grabs the ball and starts running around and then pulls out a racket and whacks you over the head with it, right? I mean, all of a sudden you're like, whoa!
Yeah.
It's no longer a fun game in the sense that what's required for a game to be fun, if you will, it has to have some boundaries. It has to have some rules, and then a referee, who goes around and calls those. And when you play the game, you give yourself to it, and the rules you become so acquainted with them, you stop thinking about them anymore.
Right. It's just what makes sense.
Exactly.